What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data and today is March 22nd of 2019. Well, folks, I hope y'all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, and today on the update, we've really got two major topics. We're going to be talking about the continued hype train that is exchange coins and talk about the success of BNB and other exchanges that are following suit, but also getting a little bit of a fundamental understanding as to where the value can really be derived from these tokens, and then also taking a look at the continued hype of Backed, but also the continued debacle that it is going through. So we've got lots to discuss. Let's not push it off any longer and dive right into the update right after our quick sponsor. Our sponsor for this episode is DX Exchange. DX Exchange is the first regulated digital asset exchange that allows institutions and individuals to invest, purchase, trade, and exchange both cryptocurrencies and fiat for digital ETFs and digital stocks like Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon tokens. When you become a token holder, you own digital stocks or portions of the company's stock, backed one-to-one to the real asset. So if you buy one digital stock of Amazon, one stock of Amazon is kept in custody and purchased in the market. Together, we can now trade the untradeable and bank the unbankable 24/7 and commission free. All right, everyone, so let's go ahead and take a look over the market over the last 24 hours. As you can probably guess, most cryptocurrencies are down at the moment. This has to do with the fact that Bitcoin was not able to hold support on its 100-day, and with Bitcoin being down about 1.4% over the last 24 hours, it makes sense that altcoins are following. And so long as it can't continue to get above that 100-day and test towards 4,200, I don't think we're going to see higher levels. Now, the one thing the bulls have an advantage right now is that we are coming back, actually right back to the $140 billion range, even with the dip we saw yesterday. It was about a $3 billion dip in market valuation. Most of this, again, still coming into play, but we're right back to the same range we've been for the past week. We're really still pushing sideways. It wasn't anything substantial. But you all know what I'm looking for. I want to see that close above 4,200. I want to get above that 100-day moving average, and I want to see Bitcoin dominance break below 50. That's when I'm going to start getting speculative, right? So no need to do any crazy TA today, guys. Nothing's really moved in that case. Markets are relatively lacking in volatility. What isn't lacking in volatility when we're talking about crypto markets are these exchange tokens. And I want to spend some time to kind of break down a lot of different topics and questions about this, talking about the success of BNB, how exchanges are following in Binance's footsteps and creating their own tokens, and understanding as well what is fundamental value for these tokens and what's speculative value, right? Because what might seem as fundamental value could very well be seen as speculative value, and I'll talk about that later on. So let's go with the first topic here. BNB, Binance Coin, is up 120% this year. And Binance Coin, if we really take a look back, guys, let's just step back in history a little bit. Back more than a year ago, when Binance was really just getting started out, BNB was this entirely new concept, this idea that you could use a token to pay down fees for an exchange. I think maybe there had been one other exchange who had done it before. I don't know if there was or there wasn't. Either way, Binance was one of the pioneers in this space. And whether or not you like it or not, it has been used extensively in the community, and that's what gave it so much value initially. When Binance started to see an immense amount of liquidity, it had offered a lot of altcoins. It reached to a particular set of audiences across the world, and it marketed itself very well with its referral program. It set itself up to be the liquidity provider. And when it's the liquidity provider, people need a token to pay down exchange fees. Or at least they're going to take that opportunity when it was most favorable, when it was like 50% off. Outside of that as well, they also have the ability for those who have a referral income. I know we do it here on the Data channel, where basically if you get a variety of small amounts of fees off of random altcoins, that you can do what's known as a BNB dust transfer. It's something along those lines, where basically you can convert all those coins to BNB. Basically, you're taking all those pairs and buying up BNB on the open market, which sets a demand for the token again. And not to mention, you're probably paying market value. You're paying basically doing a market trade. In that case, I'll pay whatever price. So you're paying into the ask, right? You're buying the ask. So the price is getting pushed up there. It's clearing through the order book. And then the third thing that has come up now that has really played a role in this, out of the dozen things that Binance claims really uplift the value of the token, is the IEO craze, the initial exchange offering craze that has been going on ever since ICOs have been dead off the map. And so many of the kind of infamous ICOs I remember looking at last year in 2018 that were struggling have now absolutely restructured in order to launch on initial exchange offerings. It's the next big craze. They're playing off the hopeful hype that people are going to keep playing into the system. And to be fair, people speculate, people like doing it. And that's what's really led to the vast majority of this rise in value here. Really what's happened the later part of February and March, ever since we've seen the craze in Fetch AI as well as BitTorrent token, right? And Binance isn't the only one who can do this. And that's exactly why we've seen Huobi token and KuCoin shares starting to pop up, because whether it is the exchanges themselves actually taking the initiative to announce that they're going to be doing this, for example, Huobi token is doing top network, I think, in the next few days or next week or so. Either way, people are going to speculate. People are going to buy these tokens. Now, this is where I want to make my point here. There's two major things that I want to discuss here. First off, you have one big concern, and that is that if you can't, let's say, for example, all of this buying activity is absolutely legitimate and all of the buyers, this is again not the case, but all of the buyers of Binance Coin, of Huobi token, of KuCoin shares, all these exchange tokens are going directly into these IEOs, right? Let's just say that was the case. Even if that was the case, we'd have to be concerned about one possibility, and that is that if you cannot continue to keep up that demand for IEOs, continuing to launch new ones, raising higher valuations, meaning that you need more BNB or Huobi token to actually partake. Again, it's acting as a replacement for Ethereum here. Ethereum used to do this for ICOs. That's why its value skyrocketed, not because it was the world computer. It was a funding mechanism, and capital flowed through it. If you can't maintain that demand for BNB and the IEOs, BNB's value will drop like a rock. It will lose a lot of this gained valuation if you're not using IEOs as a mechanism for funding. So Binance and all these exchanges have a huge incentive to set higher targets for these different IEOs, or do more of them. So I think they need to keep up that momentum if they really want this valuation to hold. Now, here's the second thing as well. A lot of this has to do with pure speculative value. Now, that's cryptocurrencies in general, but in this case, it's really playing off of that first value. It's saying, well, if so long as this IEO trend keeps going, and this is the major exchange for liquidity, or maybe Huobi token is another major leader as well, then in that case, I can just hold on this token because it's always going to be going up, right? And with all the other mechanisms they've proven before, they've shown that they can keep this thing going and going and going, right? So that's the major thing here, is that there's this very speculative and very teetering kind of possibility that this could go really high if they continue the IEO craze, or it could go extremely low. It's not going to be something where it's relatively neutral. Now we've talked about this, and we've also talked about how other exchanges are following. I want to talk about Binance Coin more specifically. People have asked me to kind of do some TA on Binance Coin. And there's really not much TA I need to do. Binance Coin has a very similar pattern. I forgot to draw my downtrend lines here for Binance Coin. But the fact of the matter is here, as you can see, a very similar trend here for Binance Coin. Very parabolic movement in regards to Binance Coin, where there are these periods where either trading is in high demand, they're cutting back what you can actually get out of the trading fee for Binance Coin, right? If it's cutting down in that case, they're getting burned in that matter. So people get more eager to have a holding if it's going to be a big liquidity provider in the future. And then also when they come up with some genius new way to set demand for it. And this has been really, for the most part, the IEO trend, right? Binance Coin was well overdue for an uptrend technically, because it was going through a descending wedge, as it has done beforehand. But the thing I want to talk about now is where I believe Binance Coin is heading now. I think in the long term, if they can keep this up, look, I'll be fair, guys, IEOs concern me a little bit, especially BitTorrent token. That does not seem like a good one to do right off the bat, in the sense that most torrented content is illegally obtained. Nonetheless, let's just say off the technicals that this is a little bit overextended, right? We are towards the almost sheer parabolic phase of this uptrend, where for multiple days we saw this already large coin gain hundreds of millions of dollars in value just over the last few weeks. And with Fetch AI not having that much success, I think it's going to turn off a lot of people to wanting to partake in the next IEO, right? Fetch AI, I can only assume either didn't sell investors enough, might have gone on too large of a valuation, or not given up enough tokens, or B, doesn't have the proper market makers on the exchange. And either way, no matter what it is, it left a really bad impression on a lot of people from its performance. So I think what you're going to see is a breakthrough on this, and we're finally going to start to see a slowdown on the uptrend. Now, where do I think Binance Coin will be heading? Probably to make support on some level of previous resistance, right? This would seem like a good range, maybe here around 30,000, 300,000 sats. You know, who knows? All I know is that I'm not going to be buying in at these levels. As much as I think it's good to hold those who have momentum, who have proven time and time again. You know, for example, you know, anyone can criticize Binance if they want. But what token has proven so much utility as of yet, right? I have to be fair in that regard. People are using it. And whether or not it's a crafty or cunning way of making people use it, it has been used in that case. It is used as a mechanism to fundraise and to inflow capital. And so long as they're able to do that, it's going to hold decent valuation. But those, you know, waves of excitement can also come with corrections. And I think that we're going to see a pretty sharp one over the next few weeks. Because I think, again, unless they can keep up that momentum and do another IEO, that's the case, you know. And not to mention as well, to provide some perspective, guys, in a market with much less liquidity, Binance Coin has been able to come back up past its valuations back in January. And that's a little bit concerning to me. A few $100 million over the valuation, at least here on Coin Paprika. Might be a little bit off, but I think that's an important thing to take into mind. You can see the difference in trading on the coin itself from these time periods of 285 million to 154 million, and just broader cryptocurrency market volume in that case. So that's my one concern. Alrighty, so I want to know what you guys think about that down below in the comments. But let's go ahead and talk about the continued hype and also debacle of Bakkt. Now, Bakkt has just recently raised at a $740 million valuation, recently raising over $180 million in funding last year. And once we take this into account, you know, you would think that everything is going fine and dandy over at Bakkt. You would think that, you know, it's the leading cryptocurrency company outside of maybe Coinbase and a few exchanges out there, and that it's yet another unicorn ready to take off in the valley. Well, Bakkt itself has not been able to get everything done. And it has to do with a very interesting dilemma. It's not that the Bakkt team isn't trying. They've done very well at acquiring companies that are going to help in what they're aiming to do. They have a great team, great resources at their disposal, you know, having people from ICE and the New York Stock Exchange working on building this platform. Some really great minds. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that the CFTC has put the brakes on the Bitcoin futures that the ICE in this case, or Bakkt, wants to do. Now, let me explain and summarize this very quickly, because there is a dilemma here that I think a lot of people won't be able to really kind of understand the article and as to what the problem is. So the CFTC has basically frozen Bakkt in this case from being able to conduct Bitcoin futures at the moment, or at least launch their new Bitcoin futures. Now, the reason why, it has nothing to do with ICE as a company not being professional enough or not, being proper enough to do something like this. It has to do with the fact that Bakkt has a very interesting dilemma that is not common in futures markets. When we're dealing with a lot of futures contracts nowadays, we're not dealing with physically settled futures contracts. It used to be much more common back in the day, but nowadays most people don't do physical settlement of their contracts, or at least the company who does the futures contracts didn't have to deal with that. Bakkt is in an interesting dilemma where it has plans to manage its own crypto, right? To manage the Bitcoin behind the books of the Bitcoin futures as they're claimed to be backed. And the CFTC doesn't want that. The CFTC says, well, hold on a minute. No. We don't want you managing your own Bitcoin in this case. That should be done by someone else. And they're in this interesting dilemma. It's like, okay, well, if we're not managing this Bitcoin, which is something that if one transaction goes wrong, then we're out of luck and that money is lost if someone is able to hack it. Who are we going to trust with this? How are we going to do it properly? Why can't we manage our own Bitcoin? And it's this, push and pull between regulators and, ICE in this case, or Bakkt, to actually do things properly. So that's the question we need to really ask here is how are they going to go about being able to get in the way of actually fixing this issue, right? So again, I recommend you guys read through the article if you guys want to learn a little bit more about it. I'll leave it linked down below in the comments. But it's a very interesting topic. Unless we can find a way to get around this hole or please both the CFTC and what ICE plans to do in order to securely store their Bitcoin for the futures contracts, we may not be able to have backed Bitcoin, backed Bitcoin futures, no pun intended. I guess that's why they named it backed. Anyways, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Leave me a comment thinking about what you think about BACK. Do you think it's going to be coming sometime this year? I think it's going to be probably in the later part of 2019. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than most people think. But once they find the right custodial solution, I think it's going to be very likely that they'll be able to potentially launch this sometime in later 2019. And also for the exchange tokens, what do you guys think about that? Anyways, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.